Hey women, and thank you for watching my channel. It would be very helpful to me if you decided to subscribe today. And if you are not ready for that kind of commitment, then just give me a thumbs up because it helps me out a lot. So I want to talk today about resource extraction, and this is a term that I first heard in 2013 at a radical feminist conference. And a couple women from Deep Green Resistance were there, and this weekend was awesome for a couple of reasons, not least of which being this was the first time I saw another woman as hairy as I am, just embracing that aspect of her body. And she gave me a lot of inspiration and a lot of courage to go forth in my own life and just be my own hairy self. But she also did a really great talk, and you can find it online. It's Rachel Ivy's talk on gender. I'll link it in the description. And she talks about resource extraction when it comes to women. And I had heard about this with regard to the environment, and when we talk about the environment, we talk about basically scoring the earth and extracting whatever goods we decide are ours, which are not, and basically leaving a wake of destruction. So when it comes to women, it's a bit different, and yet it's not different at all. It's different because women are human, but it's not different in the sense that the extractors are male and they believe they have every right to this extraction and they feel very entitled to it. They feel very deserving of it. And in fact, if you told them that what they were doing was extraction, most of them wouldn't even believe that that was the case. That's how blind they are in our society to how intense this process is. So when it comes to resource extraction with women, there are a few avenues here that men explore most of all, and these are the issues that radical feminists delve into to get to the root of, to stop this extraction. So one of them is extracting labor. So we are even just talking about physical labor, and the human trafficking trade in Canada, in the United States, and across the world for labor is higher than sex trafficking, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that those two things aren't inextricably connected, because they are, and it's the idea that men have a right to women's labor. So, however that looks. So, resource extraction, you can extract profit from a woman's body by exploiting her labor. So that's her work. We see this in all kinds of industries where women are especially oppressed, like the textile industry and things like that. So that would be labor. Sexual labor is another huge one. Like sex trafficking is an extraction of sexual labor in a way that's so obvious it almost cannot be denied. But all forms of prostitution and the overlap between prostitution and sex trafficking is massive. All forms of prostitution are resource extraction as well. And that's because you can't consent to something when money is involved. And when someone pays you for access, what they're doing is extracting their sexual endgame from your body. So they're treating you as a tool. Sorry, Priestess is here. Hey, monkey. Hello, everyone. Okay, she just can't be over here. She can be over here. Oh, I know, honey. Here we go. Oh, right there. Right there, please. So prostitution is resource extraction because men are paying money, and as we learned in my Radical Feminist Foundations video, money is inherently coercive. If you wouldn't have sex with someone, if someone wouldn't agree to have sex with you without money being involved, and we know from capitalism that money is coercive, then it's rape. So they don't actually consent because consent cannot be coerced, and money is coercive. So that's the sort of radical feminist take on prostitution. And and what they're extracting is sexual pleasure. So sexuality is not, it should not be a resource. It should not be traded in. It should not be purchased. But under patriarchy, it is treated as a resource. So I think it's really important to look at that. And another, so there's our sexual resources that are extracted under patriarchy. And emotional labor is a resource that's extracted under patriarchy, extracted from women. And it's exhausting to have to do. It's a whole full-time job in and of itself for women, for most of the men in our lives. It's a huge investment that we shouldn't have to make. We should just be able to exist in the world without also carrying the burden of other people's emotions and the responsibility for them. So it's also important to look at literal extraction. So surrogacy is a huge trade, and people want babies that they know everything about. There's this idea that people deserve children, or people have a right to be parents. I don't think that that's true. I don't think that parenthood is an inalienable right by any means, because when you make parenthood an inalienable right, you make sex an inalienable right. So that means that any man has a right to have sex, which means that women have to be the ones having sex with them in order to have these children that these men have a right to. So when you say that parenthood is a right, what you're saying is women don't have a right to not have sex with men. Someone has to be the incubator of this human being. So and then on the other end of that, they extract this baby, which, not even too long ago was pretty much just extra labor and a name. So it belonged to the man. It was chattel, just like the wife was. You could put it to work in the factories if you were poor, or you could raise it to be your heir if you had anything to pass along. But it was always an extension of the man. It's never its own individual being, basically until its dad died. And that's how patriarchy is sustained, generationally through males, and women are incidental on the side. Which, as we know, it doesn't make any sense, because parenthood, especially, more than 50 years ago, was a crapshoot, or I should say paternity, not parenthood. You had no idea if your child was biologically yours if you were a male, but a woman always knows when a child is hers, so her line is guaranteed, but male lines are not guaranteed. So to pass things down the male line is a ridiculous system. It's completely flawed from the get-go. But matrilineal makes so much more sense, because you have a very streamlined and very sure journey of genetics, which apparently is very important. If you wanted to make that argument, I'm not necessarily making that argument. I'm just saying patriarchy is stupid. Not only is it brutal and horrific, but it's stupid. It doesn't make sense. So using a woman's body to extract a human child is obviously wrong. It's wrong. No person has a right to coerce or force or encourage or pay another human being to sacrifice their health and 9 months of their life, and way more than just 9 months, to create a human being that they're going to take away as part of the contract. And again, when you are poor, how many resources as a woman do you really have? And obviously, I don't want to see women suffer in poverty, but the answer to poverty is not someone paying you to create a human that they can take away from you, but it's revolution of this entire system. So I don't think that two gay men have a right to pay a woman to have a child for them. I think this is a big place where apparently radical feminists are coming up against more liberal feminists yet again, because it's gay men who experience male supremacy and male entitlement coming up against poor women, most frequently women of color, impoverished women, and so who has the power here? Who has the money? Who has the social approval to do things like this without repercussions? Always ask yourself that question: who benefits and who suffers? And again, it's poor women of color who are suffering, and it's got to stop. So obviously this happens all the time outside of surrogacy. This happens within relationships constantly across the globe. This is basically the way that patriarchy is sustained. The nuclear family is one of the cornerstones of patriarchy, the idea that women are isolated in this house with the man who is the head of the house because God said so, or someone said so, or the government said so. And she's completely beholden, whether it's financially or because of the children or otherwise, to this person who decides basically when she makes another human being for him. And again, like, not saying that some women don't want to have children. Sure, many women want to have children, enjoy being mothers, but it's not just about what you as an individual want to do. It's if we're not all free not to, how are we really free to do it? If we can't say no, what is our yes valued at? As a class, and again, women are a class. We're a class of human beings. We have a common designation that we share. We have our bodies in common. And like I said in the Foundations video, patriarchy is based on two factors: sexual access to women's bodies and access to women's procreative abilities. Those are two, and they're both biological. They're both based on sex, which is your female sex. So obviously, resource extraction happens in so many different small and subtle ways, but the big one is basically containing a woman to maintain her status as your human-making machine. So women everywhere must have the ability and the opportunity to not abide by these strictures. And that means choosing not to have children ever. Means maybe having the availability of other choices rather than having to exploit or have their labor be exploited, rather than have their bodies be exploited for male benefit. When we suffer from a lack of choices, it can look like we have freedom between this, and this, but this is a very narrow range, and there are things on other side of the spectrum, on both sides, that we're not seeing or being exposed to. And if you want to use your government as an example for this, a two-party system, you can choose, you have the right to vote, you can choose between these two things that are on a spectrum, maybe sort of, without really being revealed to you that there's this whole scheme in place, more than just a spectrum that you're seeing, that you're being exposed to. There's way more going on, way more opportunities and options that impact people in really big ways. And to choose between two very narrow and very similar choices is not freedom. And this is what we're looking for. We're looking for liberation. Liberation to have the full range of choices available to us, and no punishment for whatever choice that we make. So we can talk in another video about femininity and how some women say, like, I shave my legs for myself, or I wear makeup only for me, I wear high heels because I like the way they make me feel, as aspects of femininity that women are punished for not doing. So again, it's this idea that if when you say no, you are punished, how sure is your yes? How much weight does your yes really have? You're agreeing to two very narrow choices, and it's I do this and I celebrate it so that I don't have to deal with the cognitive dissonance of doing something that's anti-feminist. The other option is, if I don't do these things, if I don't shave, if I don't wear makeup, how am I treated socially? And I can tell you right now that it's not the same. You are not treated the same socially, depending on the way you present yourself with your clothing, and clothing is ascribed as a part of gender. So that's a conversation I would love to have another day if anyone is interested, but that's basically my summary on resource extraction, and how I'd love to talk about a bit more, but I think Rachel Ivey again does a really good job on this, on how this connects with what men do to the earth. And what men do to the earth, they do to women, because we are the same. It is Mother Earth. She is treated like a woman, as if she will give endlessly until she's dead, and then they'll just go find another one. Like, there's this attitude that once Earth is toast, they're just gonna fly off. Like, how ejaculatory is that? How very male, basically male is that? We're gonna take everything that we can from her. We're going to take her children, so that would be like the flora and fauna. We're going to just expose her and strip her raw, so that's like I recommend reading Eve Ensler's In the Body of the World, because she has a beautiful analogy of the way her body is represented by the earth at large, and how her cancer was aligned with the oil spills, the BP oil spill. And I think that there's a lot to be taken away from this. They blast mountaintops. Like, we get surgeries done to take parts of ourselves away to meet an ideal that is nonsensical and ever changing, and according to porn. This is not women without this culture constantly in the background. Don't rip apart their bodies to meet a standard that didn't come from them. Right? It's so wrong to do this to women. Women deserve to exist in the world perfectly the way we are. We are born, created exactly as we're meant to be, and that is good. There is no value judgment on looking different or being different or having a different level of ability, whether it's physical or mental, or your mental health status, or none of these things have a value judgment until we give it that. So the idea that women are not okay comes from outside, and so much of the work that we need to do as radical feminists is to get okay with our inside, so that we can fight this fight, because we are so distracted, so self-focused, so tormented with eating disorders and addictions and all of these things that just keep us small and scared. And we are still helpful, yes, when we are in the midst of our issues, but we are so much more effective when we completely integrate the idea that we are perfectly good, perfectly okay, wonderful human beings, about which nothing needs to be changed, and from which nothing can be taken. Nothing can be taken from us. We need to be whole autonomous beings where we exist as a unit, and that unit is unto itself. So that's my video for today. I hope that you enjoyed it and took something away from it. Again, I don't know what you don't know, so if I touched on something that you're unfamiliar with, I hope you mention it in the comments. I have a few more videos planned of the radical feminist variety, but I also have a lot more planned for other areas of passion that I have. So I hope you continue to watch these and to communicate with me about them, because I love hearing your thoughts and your feedback. It makes me stronger and better. And okay. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day. Okay.